I'm Mark Bentham.
And I'm Graham Nichols.
And I'm Katie Holloway. You are listening to Ordinary. You definitely are. How are you both?
Happy.
Happy? Why are you happy, Mark? Didn't expect me to ask that, did you?
Yeah, I'm not. Well, sun is shining.
The sun is shining.
The Lord is good.
That's
Nothing
true.
to be happy about.
It's less surprising that the Lord is good.
Yeah, all of that.
I had to do a journey today, and quite early doors, and then I was going to be potentially late for this, so I bought a sandwich quickly when I'd finished the meeting. A Subway sandwich, actually, very nice with meatballs.
Yeah, like a Subway.
Spicy meatballs, a little bit of.
What bread did you have it on?
Kind of rye bread, wholemeal sort of bread.
Could be Italian herb and cheese.
No, I don't like complications in bread. Bread's got to be bread. Can't have any flavour to it. Anyway, if you're trying, I was in Eastbourne, and if you're trying to get from Eastbourne home and find somewhere suitable that's not like a service pullover, but a nice little parking place, it's quite hard to find. But I found somewhere, and I felt like a proper travelling salesman, shoving this Subway in my mouth as fast as I could, sort of sitting in my car, listening to the news, and all these people are going wing, wing, sort of driving past me. And I thought, it's like when I used to drive around the country selling stuff. So, yes.
Well, do you know what? I'm really glad that you felt like that and not like an older person who's gone to Eastbourne for a day trip having a picnic on the side of the road. So, let's look at the blessings here, bro.
No, I'd have a picnic blanket, and I'd have a nice little flask.
But I thought you were going in that direction. I thought you were going, I went to Eastbourne, I was sitting on the side. I felt like a proper old person, having my little sandwich, cup of tea.
The bloke who served me the sandwich, I said, how's business and how's it going? And he said, it's terrible. And he said, Eastbourne's only any good in the summer. I was like, okay. Because there wasn't anyone else in the shop, to be fair. Yeah. So probably the meatballs are 10 days old or something.
Well, let's see how you feel tomorrow.
Or later tonight.
Yeah. Good.
On that note, do you have a picnic with any friends, Graham? That was my segue.
Occasionally friends. They're normally friends connected with family in some way. But yeah, I do sometimes picnic with friends.
I used to have a lot of picnics with friends, actually, but I'm in a season where I don't so much now. I think it was in that preschool era, and often you had to pick them up at lunchtime, and when the weather's nice, which it might be now, you used to do that a lot, go for a little picnic.
I think picnics are a little bit intimate. I think going for a meal is a bit more of a thing, that's in a restaurant or a meal in someone's house. Those are kind of options. Picnics are all a bit, they're all a bit kind of grovel around on the ground, and you got to fight over the pork pies and stuff.
Yeah.
Is it because you don't like sharing your pork pies?
Absolutely.
Is the issue? Like in a restaurant, you get your set menus, but it's a picnic.
Yeah.
It's all about sharing. And with family, you can just be like, well, this is mine, get lost. But with others, you have to be a little bit more polite. Is that the
This
issue?
may or may not be true. It may be close to the truth.
Yeah.
This is so fun. I feel like we've come up with a really good metaphor for life and relationships. Is the picnic versus the restaurant meal. I feel like there's got to be some cheesy sermon.
And the question then becomes, what becomes of the banquet in Revelation? Is it more picnic style, feast-like, and you've got to share, or will you have your own set portions?
Yeah.
Well, I won't have my selfish insecurities then.
So you'll be okay. You'll be happy to share your pork pie.
Or my dislike of Chris that have been eaten by 3 other people. Or 3 other people have had their hand in the bag.
Lick your fingers, go for some more.
Yeah.
It'll be much more like that, won't it? Because a Passover meal is very breaking, sharing, isn't it? Yeah. So it's got to be like that, but better.
But with washed hands that are now cleansed.
Washed in the blood of the lamb. Oh, this metaphor keeps on going. I love it. Shall we actually talk about what we're meant to be talking about? Although I feel like this might be more interesting, actually. We are on friendship today, which I don't think has been covered in all 6 seasons of Ordinary.
I think you're right. I don't remember talking about it.
Yeah. Maybe it has, but I don't know. It just made me think, do we underestimate the importance of friendship? Like, do you think it gets overlooked in Christian circles? For instance, we talk a lot about parenting and marriage in sermons and do different courses and stuff, but like not everybody gets married, not everybody has children, but everybody has or needs or should have friends. Why is that? Why do we overlook it? Should we underlook it? Should we not overlook it? Like maybe we should run friendship courses as well as marriage and parenting courses. What do you reckon, Mark? Tell us.
You see, I was sitting there thinking, do we overlook it? Maybe, but I think it all depends what we mean by that, really. And the reason I'm struggling is because I think I see it, in some, friendship becomes everything, and I think there's a good thing, but then it becomes idolatrous that then has impacts in other areas. But I can also see... Same could be
said of marriage or children, though, surely.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And then I can see that we don't often talk about friendship or how to be friends. But I wonder if that's partly because it's lost in the category of how we love one another and bear with one another and what it is. You know, I think whether it is distinct. Obviously, friendship is a biblical picture. We need friends. We're not made to live alone. It's just how we categorise that and what that looks like and what we mean by that. And then the weight we place on it.
Yeah.
So I haven't really answered it.
No, I think you have. You said, no, we've not overlooked it. You've refuted it.
Well, I mean, do we teach on it regularly? Probably not. We have done some teaching on it at Christchurch. As a talkback, I think, many years ago. So we have talked about it. Probably in fairness, as a topic on its own. Yeah. At times. I think it is that challenging still of whether we're specific enough about it. We may not be that. We may need to think about a bit more about how we push into that.
Yeah. But I guess we all know instinctively friendship is important. Do you agree, Graham, that it is important?
I think it's important. I think there's a distinction between fellowship and brotherhood and sisterhood, which is common across the church. And I think the way the Bible uses the word friends, and I think the way we're using it, is to do with more proximity and closeness of relationship. So I don't think we're actually called to be friends with everybody in a church necessarily, whereas we are called to be in fellowship with everybody in a church and across the churches as much as we're able. And similarly, we would classify them as brothers and sisters. But so it is overlooked, and it's an important category. But actually, I think the Bible gives much more teaching on relationships in general, and just assumes friendship in the sense that it assumes there will be people that are closer to us that are not. It doesn't particularly say, well, this is how you regulate a friendship. It more says, this is how you treat a brother and a sister in the church. This is how you care for one another. This is how you bear with one another. This is how you speak the truth to one another. And so maybe the Bible neglects it, you could say, because it assumes, I think, rightly, that it's a natural thing that there are people who will be closer to us. And I think, again, it assumes that all the really good principles about how you're supposed to treat Christian brothers and sisters, and indeed how you're supposed to treat marriage partners, would find its way into friendships as well, just naturally. If that doesn't quite answer the question, but yeah. Well, I think there is that distinction. Friendships are to do with proximity and closeness of relationship, which might be circumstantial, but it's people who are not relatives, but who there's a close, ongoing relationship and shared knowledge and so on, which there may not be across the church, which is fine.
So do you think friendship maybe is not as important as I apparently think it is? Or at least my question was going to be why is friendship so important? But do you think actually maybe it's not as important as maybe the world around us would have us think?
I think it's important because all relationships are important. I think there are lots of reasons why people have close friends, have lots of them, have very few, which are all sometimes to do with personality, sometimes to do with circumstances, sometimes to do with whether they're married or not, and So I don't think importance may not be the right word. I think there are relationships in general are a really important part of being human.
Yeah.
So they're a set of that. I'm not sure whether to get too precious about, well, have you got really close friends? And, you know, how should you kind of view that? And, you know, you're a bit of a loser if you haven't got many close friends, or you're a bit of a loser if you have too many close friends. I think it's in a way it's what God sends us, and there are different seasons of life. So whether the word important is the word I'd use, I think relationships are really important. Yeah. So and friendships are part of that.
It must be important, though, that there are some like more than one persons in our lives who we can fellowship with and share things with and pray with, and, you know, at the very least do hospitality with, from. Like, that must be important, because the Bible commands all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it
would you not call those people friends?
No, yeah, we're quite. I'm sure I would call them friends, but what I mean is, those are just church things, aren't they? Really, sure. You know, things that we do for people in the church, and some of them we might do a bit more than others. I think friendships is more to do with having a sort of closer, ongoing relationship with, which is not necessarily related to having the things in common, because otherwise we'd be friends with everybody. It's not to do with having faith in common, or it's not to do with wanting to care for them. It's to do with all kinds of circumstances that have led us to share things with them and have a sort of closer relationship with them.
But I wonder whether part of this, the struggle we're having is that, yes, we're talking fellowship, which is the issue, and you, I think, rightly and healthy define that. But I think sometimes I wonder whether when we talk about friendship, we're talking worldly friendship, and what we mean by that is we want someone who we can have, you know, an intimacy with, someone to have fun with, hang out with, and whether the biblical picture of friendship is much more about helping us to grow more like Christ, to deepen one another. Now, if I have that idea of friendship, it begins to shape it not so much around, I've got to find people who are at the same age, stage, interests than I, but more, are there those who I can be friends with who may be older than me, maybe younger than me, maybe have very different interests to me, but who connect because we can talk and be honest and candid with one another, and have rich, deep fellowship and pray with one another and help one another. And I think that's more the pattern of the biblical friendship. And of course, we've got to have fun, and we need people who we have fun with. But I wonder whether sometimes we're muddling what the purpose of biblical friendship is and what we class, what we're seeing in the world as friendship. Those to gossip with, those to kind of, you know, and we label it under friendship. Well, I'm having to speak out what I feel, but what I'm really doing is gossiping, or what I'm really doing is just grumbling and complaining about my husband. And it's just a sharing and moan, and it reflects more how the world operates rather than the biblical friendship, which is reflected much more of how do we see God demonstrate friendship.
Yeah, really interesting. There's got to be some fun and laughter though with your friends.
Absolutely.
Like, we can't always just say, "Oh no," like it. You know, I guess when the problem is when you talk about something on a podcast, it's all very theoretical and it does sound a bit dry and boring. But, you know, we are humans, and God designed us with personalities and sense of humour. And
no, that's right. And I think so. And I think that what the challenge then is that, are my friendships purely those that seek to entertain me and provide entertainment and comfort, or people to complain at, or are they seeking to have the whole orbit of what it is to be a friend, fun, laughter, but also speaking the truth in love, helping me to build up in Christ, seeking to help me be a godlier husband, father, you know, I think, you know, in the workplace, rather than, I think sometimes we narrowly draw it into the area of, these are the guys I just like to hang with and have a good time with. And the friendship is much less than what it can be. And that's what I want, because I'm not getting it elsewhere, so I need to get it there. Do you see?
Yeah. Do you think it's like, do you think we need both, or do you think it's okay to have both types of friends? Like, maybe I'm just thinking, like, parking. Actually,
what are the
parking,
two types?
This kind of, those who just do have fun, just people who enjoy being around, but are not going to challenge you spiritually and help you grow you, pray with you, things like that. But also those who do, you know, those who do have that kind of.
It sounds disastrous.
For instance, I'm just saying, should we always have Christian friends? So, you know, if there are people who are not Christians who we enjoy spending time with, which is right, I think, but they're obviously never going to sit and pray with us, and they won't, you know. But
sure, I think that's a different point. I mean, Jesus is the friend of tax collectors and sinners, so
exactly.
He intentionally has life in common with them. So absolutely, friendship with the world in the Jesus sense is a really good thing. Friendship in the world, in the sense that it gets used in the New Testament, can also be a negative thing when it's a finding our satisfaction, common cause with, and all those sort of things. I wouldn't get hung up about the distinction so much. I mean, I kind of made the distinction just to get us kind of thinking about it. But I think there are just people that we have things in common with, and sometimes in the church, there are people who also happen to be in church with us, who we have some things in common with and can do some things in common with. I think the thing to focus on in all those things, whether they're in the church or with people who overlap with the church or outside the church, is how are we conducting ourselves in those relationships? You know, are we working with integrity and with selflessness and for their good? You know, are we leading them into sin and all those kind of things to think about? You know, we may have a football team in common, so we go and watch football with them. You know, we may have some other hobby or some artist we want to go and watch or hear or whatever. And so, well, you know, I'm taking my friend. You know, you may not share a lot of life with them, but you share some things in common. But the question is not so much should you or shouldn't you have that. It's fine whether you do or you don't. The question is, now, how am I going to conduct myself in that whole relationship? What am I going to ask them about? What are we going to laugh about? All those kind of things to think about. Somebody chuckling, it makes the Christian life seem very, very difficult. Like, what am I going to laugh about?
Like, you have to plan it and have permission.
But, you know, there are moments, and I've done it, and I'm sure other people have, where you have a laugh with your friends about someone. You think, well, that wasn't very nice in the end, or I shared something with a friend that maybe I shouldn't have done, a friend outside the church, and kind of reflect on that. Or you think, I haven't really helped them. You know, they were struggling and I ended up talking about myself too much, or I was struggling and they talked about themselves too much and their new job, and they weren't any help to me at all. And they are my friends and I still love them, but I didn't really enjoy being with them because I was sad. So there are all kinds of ways we could conduct ourselves better.
What, Mark, what do you think of some of the major challenges then now? So Graham kind of hinted at some, I guess, but I feel like in 2024, there are so many extra challenges to being good friends. So what are some of those?
I don't think it's just 2024. I think it's been a shift over the last couple of decades, isn't it? I mean, the shift over the last couple of decades has been mobility. So whereas previously people would spend great proportions of their life in one place, family would be connected all in that place. Friendships, therefore, would be deepened over years, decades, through various seasons of life. Mobility has meant that, therefore, often families are spread. Therefore, you have less time to invest in friendships because you have to travel to visit family, stay connected with them. It also means that the likelihood is people are moving around, so you're not investing in people over all seasons of life. They're just seeing you in one particular season move on. So increased mobility has happened over the decades. But of course, increasingly social media, which has then increased this sense of I have multiple friends, and there's blessing. Let's we're not denying the social media, and it has allowed for, in some ways, friendships to continue in ways that maybe they couldn't. It's meant that people can engage in friendships, for example, okay, not social media, but technology in the sense of things like Zoom, where you can engage with friendship, video conferencing with friendships, so maintain them in a certain way. So there's some blessings, but it's also meant that it's kind of confused things about what we think friendship is. and it's slightly lowered the bar so that we think we have more friends than we necessarily have. And I think what it's meant is that it's meant that in our interactive relationships in the flesh, we operate at that superficial level still, because that's what we engage with all the time. So we're kind of constantly posting things on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. This is what we're doing. Hey, how you? And it's all at that superficial level. Yeah. And we're not getting to the kind of what I think the Bible speaks of in terms of what friendship begins to look like. We're not engaging in those conversations because we just don't know how to do them. We've stopped doing them. So we operate at this superficial level the whole time, which means the friendship levels just don't have the depth, the gravitas, the helpfulness that they could be because of where we're at.
And then maybe an additional layer of that is then when we do get together with our friends, we're so distracted by our phones, by what you might be missing out on online, or even just the shortened attention span and all of that.
Or we fool ourselves into thinking, I don't need real life friends because I've got all these friends on, and it kind of fills some void in terms of sense of I don't feel lonely on one level because I have all these friends, but I am. And actually that's what the world is observing right now as well, in the sense of this sense of we're alone together. I think it's the title of one book by one sociologist, that this sense of we're just, we're all there together, but we're actually all feeling alone.
I think we talked about it, but I don't know if we talked about it in an episode on air or whether it was offline, but that more and more teenagers now are not taking driving lessons and not going to pass their driving test.
Yeah, we did talk about it, whether online or not, but that's definitely true.
And I just wondered if that's kind of a symptom of the same thing. Well, it must be that actually teenagers, 17, 18-year-olds, even at my age, which is, 20 years ago, that, we were desperate to, not that I still not pass my driving test now in my 30s, but, we were desperate to try because we wanted to get out and go places and be with our friends. But now it seems like lots are not that bothered. They can chat to their friends online, they can game with them. Are we seeing that more? I mean, Mark, maybe you can answer it because you've got teenage boys, but or at least, and Graham, you've got teenage grandchildren. Sorry to age you. You spend time with teenagers. I don't massively at the moment. Is that what's happening? Is it that they're less bothered about real life friendships than we were a generation or two ago?
My observation is, from the experience, my very limited, is that that's not massively the case.
Okay,
as in, but that may be that. I kind of speak in the sense of I'm not doubting it. I'm sure that there is that element, and you see that in the wider. I wonder whether it's slightly different for those with children who've grown up in the church, who have been used to multi-generational conversations, have been used to being part of groups. They've been in children's groups. So they have friendships. They meet up regularly. Both my children would be both keen to get out. They play on stuff on Xbox, but they're not. And that's the way they play with their mates and chat with their mates. But they both are keen to get out and see. And
they're a little bit different. They're a little bit different in that they're both sporty, which maybe creates a whole social network that people who are not sporty don't naturally have. But I mean, that's a good thing. But you really don't underestimate the significance of church. There's been lots of studies to do with, particularly in America, but I think they would be the same over here. Children from religious homes tend to just fare better in all aspects because of the sense of community and multi-generational conversation and brain development and so forth. So I think there's no need to be complacent, but I think it's a slightly less of a problem in church families because we're a bit more alert to it and we've got more sense of community. But I mean, there's only so many hours in a week, and if you're able to, in an evening, have a pretty good conversation with someone online or in some kind of group, that's a conversation you're not going to have in person. So you are even if you're doing quite well sociably, you're still substituting out quite a few in-person conversations for remote conversations, which may not be a bad thing. It's not universally bad that all these things are happening. I think they're just generally bad. In that they're unless they're for sort of functional reasons, most of those conversations they're not sufficiently, they don't have sufficient integrity and nuance to them, generally speaking. So if you're making a little joke, or if you're I don't know, making an arrangement that's quite different. If you're giving into any kind of debate or discussion or sharing of ideas, it's just much harder when you're sending a printed little summary of your thought and then you're waiting for a reply to come back. It's not as good for building friendships.
No. I remember being a teenager and sort of mobile phones and like MSN Messenger, all of that was kind of just came in as I was a teenager. Yeah. And like even then I would send to a friend like LOL, like laugh out loud. I was not laughing out loud, but it struck me yesterday when I met up we had our book club here and we were just chatting about this book, and it just struck me how much we were laughing. And I thought, actually, if we were just posting our thoughts on this book on the internet, you wouldn't be laughing, but in real life you kind of get that. There's something else, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, I really don't want to be sort of looking down my nose at everyone, who's using all kinds of stuff. But I think from a Christian point of view, and as Mark was saying earlier, secularly, I was even listening to something on my little traveling salesman's journey today about some other studies to do with group messaging. So completely non-Christian people working in schools were saying, I would ban any group messaging till about age 16.
I ban them forever. I hate group messages.
Because teenagers or young teenagers can't cope with the nuance of all that, and
I can't cope with it.
Manage those. So yeah, but yeah, we've gone a little bit off friendships. That's why I paused.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the benefits of big group chats, that I've had a number of good second-hand items, but the downside way outweigh that, I think.
And if you've got sort of family groups and other things, you can make arrangements. You can share a picture of someone trying to ride a scooter, and
yes, you can.
Take a picture of your sandwich or something, and that's all fine, and everyone enjoys it. They feel part of your life. But that's
sandwiches are featuring so heavily in this episode.
That's quite different.
Yeah, but that's interesting. That actually, what you're saying, Grammy, there is because is that works within family where you're known, and actually that's the beauty, isn't it? So your one of your children lives further away, but you get a glimpse of what's happening because suddenly you can see it in live mode. They can show a little video of your grandson, doing whatever, and you feel part of that.
Because you know his tone of voice as he says it.
Right, but immediately we then begin to think that we know people because we've experienced something of their online profile, and we don't have that depth of relationship. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of that superficial friendship that then begins to form. And we think we know people better than we do because we've not done the in-depth work of kind of really walking with someone, loving someone, talking with them, asking them questions, hanging with them.
Yeah. And you haven't actually got the tools for dealing with conflict and in those kind of forums. Even in a family WhatsApp groups, I'm sure you've experienced it as well. Sometimes the tension gets slightly raised, and thankfully in families where you love each other, you kind of stop it or, you deal with it. But there's not very many tools to deal with that, because what you need is a face-to-face conversation. Yeah. And people need to know that your face is not, frowning, and that you're still smiling, and that it's all fine, and that they can, take you aside or whatever. You can't do that in a group. Because we're sinners, friendships struggle as much as family relationships struggle with their own sin and selfishness at times. And part of the beauty of it is that iron sharpening iron expression in the Bible about they sharpen us up.
They do.
And I think one of the beauty, I don't know again, but of friendship within the life of the church. And I think this is where I think we've got to guard ourselves, is that sometimes we do want to invest in friendships, but I think we can begin to believe the world's lie that I've just got to hang out and have nice experiences with friends all the time. But I think some of those who are probably my closest friends are those who I have served with or served with alongside or have done. And often the serving together for the advance of the gospel is what forms the friendship that allows the life on life to begin to happen, rather than thinking we've got to have this kind of experience out here. And sometimes because we've served together, then the experiences kind of flow from that. But I think some of the beauty of being in a church family is to not think that I've got to find these magical friends who then I'm going to hang out with and we're going to have picnics together and all life is. But actually some of the friendships come through kind of, grinding next to each other, as it were, putting the shoulder to the, whatever it is, the oar.
Shoulder to the wheel.
Well, shoulder to the wheel.
So you're pushing the wheel.
Pushing the wheel, and you're kind of together in it. Yeah. And actually that forms a friendship that's far deeper, richer, more meaningful than just because the friendship you've hung out together all the time having nice picnics. And I think sometimes in church life we miss that, and we think, well, I'm serving and now I've got to go and have my friendship time. Sure. And we miss that. Actually, some of the beauty is in the joys. And I think back of the folks I'm in touch with over the years are guys often that I've served alongside, and the friendship, and it's kind of like the friendships that are formed in battle. It's kind of there's that sense of soldiering and camaraderie together. And there's a real beauty of that in the life of the church. And I think that's then allows for the intergenerational stuff to begin to kick in. That means that I don't need to think, well, okay, you like this and I like that, we're never going to be friends. But actually we can, because we're serving together, there's an intergenerational friendship that's richer, deeper than something maybe outside. And I fear at times in the life of the church, we get caught up in the worldly picture, which means I've got to have all these nice experiences with people and hang out, and that we therefore, to the detriment of the joy of kind of really seeing the beauty of serving together and the joy and the fun and the friendship of doing that. That's what, having laughs together,
Yeah. Practically then, are there things we can do to help make sure our friendships with Christians and with non-Christians, to make sure that they are getting beyond this kind of, how are you, I'm fine, lovely, goodbye, see you later thing? Like, what can we do to make sure we are getting deeper? Maybe, I don't know if we need to take them separately, whether you would do different things with your church family as you would with non-Christians, but maybe or maybe not. But I'm very aware as well that we could end up treating non-Christian friends as evangelism projects, and we definitely don't want to do that. Like, Jesus is never doing that. So what can we do? How can we get deeper friendships?
It's an interesting question. Jesus was never doing that. Jesus was never treating them as evangelism projects. No. Did Jesus want them to believe in him and have eternal life rather than not? Yeah, as a man,
it's
I think
nuanced,
he did.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So I think the question is, it's not so much are we being friends just so they can be saved as a project. That sounds bad and probably is bad. But do we want people we care for, and the more we care for them, the more we want it? Do we want them to be saved?
Yeah.
Well, we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they are a project in a way, and we are going to pray for them. I'm probably not a very good friend, but I don't get that hung up about what I'm trying to do. I think you're trying to operate with integrity all the time and with honesty. And I don't think you need to think about it too deeply, but the fact is there are some people you can tell a bit more to, and some people you can tell a bit less to. And some people need to tell a lot of their thoughts to them. Some people are completely happy with the relationship with their spouse, and not necessarily have a confidant outside of that, and that's absolutely fine. And I definitely think you shouldn't have a friend who's a closer friend than your spouse is. I think that's unhealthy, whether it's the same gender, sex as you or not. But I think all the Christian principles about how would you operate to the good of other people, you just connect them to friendships and say, how am I operating in that area? I think
I can give you 4 C's.
Oh, great.
From Tim Keller. How's that?
Yeah.
A wise friendship drawn from the Proverbs.
Go on then. This is what we're after. Why are you holding out until?
Well, because every now and then you just like to right, boom. First one, he says constancy. So in a world where increasingly disposable and fleeting, we're just constant. Thinking of that proverb, friend who sticks closer than a brother. Ultimately, that's Jesus, but just that ongoing stick with a friend. Second one is candor. So in other words, the ability to speak truth in love for the good of your friend. Yeah. Proverbs 27, better is open rebuke than hidden love. And I think that's really key, of that kind of sense of really being able to speak into your friend's life. But his third one is carefulness. We want to be courageous to speak, but we want to be wise and considerate in how to live out in the life of the friendship. Just because we have that friendship doesn't mean I say everything I'll ever see. We need to be thoughtful and wise about how we pursue friendships. And then counsel, simply speaking into a friend's life pointedly in order to offer care. Mutual encouragement, edification, exaltation, living out one another's of the scriptures together. Love one another, care for one another, all those kind of things. I think they're helpful. Is just what Graham was saying, really, in terms of thinking about those 4 C's.
Yeah, great. And do you think that's applicable to both Christian and non-Christian friends?
Well, in lots of ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Because in one sense, that's exactly what I want to be, isn't it? A good friend will be those 4 things, and being a wise, I think, just wisely thinking about when we do things, how we do things. They're all part of it, isn't it?
Yeah. There we are. I think that's a good place to end.
So do I.
On those 4 C's. Look at that. Like a pithy pith.
It's better than the 4 horses of the apocalypse. These are 4 C's of friendship.
The 4 C's of friendship. Very nice.
We won't talk about the 4 horsemen that ruined marriages, but that's another story. That's another day.
Is that a thing?
That's a thing.
It is a thing.
We'll not get into that now, though.
Okay, shall I Google that or not Google that?
You'll see it in Gottman in his 7 Principles of Marriage.
If I look at Gottman, I will, I suppose, yes.
There you go.
There we are. See you next time. You've been listening to Ordinary, the podcast seeking to help ordinary Christians live for Christ in everyday life. If you found this helpful, please do share with a friend. Come and find us on social media. We'd love to have you join our conversations. You can find us on Twitter @OrdinaryCCHH, on Instagram @OfficialOrdinaryPodcast, and on YouTube @OrdPod. That's ORDPOD. Or you can email your comments or questions to ordinary@cchh.org.uk. We'll see you next time.